This is Amplify You, the podcast about you discovering your message and broadcasting it to the world. If you're a coach, author, or speaker, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking for the best return on your time investment to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, we're giving you full access and behind the scenes look of how we're running our podcast, how our clients have found success, and what you can do to launch your podcast today. The world needs your message. I'm Michelle Abraham, the host. Join my family as we unleash your unique genius and find the connections you need to launch your adventure today. Join us and let's get amplified. Hello, Amplify You. Michelle Abraham, your host here today, and I am so excited to bring you a really special guest for our Ask the Expert interview. So today I have Charmaine Hammond with me, and I just want to say hi to Charmaine first before I tell you any more about her. So hi, Charmaine. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Good to be here, and I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. And I'm really excited about the topic we're going to talk about today. Guys, we're going to dive into sponsorships. And let me just tell you a little bit more about Charmaine and why she is the expert when it comes to sponsorships. So Charmaine is a certified speaking professional. She's an 11 times best-selling author and executive producer of an award-winning movie, Back Home Again. She's an expert in funding projects and launching projects through collaboration, influencer champions, and sponsorship. So Charmaine, you are the expert when it comes to all things collaborations and sponsorships. And I just your background is so fascinating to me. So can you share with me, how did this start in your journey, becoming a thing that now that's what you do?
I love that question because sometimes, honestly, I shake my head and wonder, how did that happen? Because my first career was in jail. I was a correctional officer and did that for 10 years, which inspired me.
Was it in jail?
So after leaving the correctional officer role, I found myself really missing working in the area of conflict, which a lot of what you deal with in corrections is conflict. So I went back to school, got trained, certified as a mediator, and opened up a mediation practice. And in between all that, I was also doing a lot of contracts around mental health. I was working for mental health, doing a lot of projects. And then I went back to school, got a master's degree in conflict analysis and management, and started teaching people how to deal with conflict. The one thread that was through my whole career as an employee, right through to starting my first business 25 years ago, the thread was relationships, and that has been woven through everything I do. When I worked in a nonprofit organization in the mental health sector, as the executive director, my role was to get money for the organization. So that is where I began learning about sponsorship and how to do sponsorship, and made every mistake in the book. And then from there, I worked for government on the other side of the table as a funder. So my job was to give money away to organizations to support their projects. And when I combined the two roles, it was like, there's the sweet spot. I now have, the different sides of the table. And I've been building in sponsorship to my business since 1997. It's a big part of what I do and how I run my business.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that you've been on both sides of it, because that gives you an advantage that's different than any other advantage. It's like us booking people on podcasts, because we work with the host, we kind of have the inside advantage of both sides of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that. I kind of wish that I had to reverse the roles and had done the government job first and then the nonprofit, because boy, oh boy.
Yeah. You would have been able to secure a little bit more funding.
Yeah. And not make the painful mistakes. Exactly.
That's awesome. So now when I think about funding, and I know we've had previous conversations about this, it's I think that's something it's not for entrepreneurs, or it's not for podcasters or people who want to have a platform like an author or a coach or a speaker, like a lot of our audience. So tell us that I'm wrong here.
You are wrong. You're very right, Michelle, that we make assumptions that sponsorship is for either nonprofit organizations and charities, or it's not for us. And I can tell you, I am very much a for-profit company. I have two businesses, both for profit, and sponsorship is built into our business model. So for those of you listening that are coaches or authors or speakers or infopreneurs, sponsorship or podcasters, sponsorship is a great way to actually raise your dreams, fund your dreams. And I would say, Michelle, it's probably it's like the hidden revenue stream that most entrepreneurs have not thought of yet. Believe you me, after the conversation we have today, they will be thinking about it because it is available. Because sponsorship, now, when you think about sponsorship for charities, that generally comes out of a budget from a company, from their philanthropy side. That's not what we're talking about right here. Where you as a podcaster, where someone as an author is going to get sponsorship, it's coming out of a company's marketing budget. So any company, whether it's the local gas station, the coffee shop down the street, or, a big brand like a Staples or a bank or an insurance company, they have marketing funds set aside, and they can choose to spend those dollars on traditional media. They can choose to spend those dollars on podcasts, going to trade shows, doing direct mail campaigns, swag, sponsoring events, and the list goes on. And sponsorship is one of those items in the list.
That's awesome. It's good to kind of like broaden our mindset around sponsorship. And so traditionally in the podcasting space, we think of sponsorship as like, an ad in the middle of our show. And like,
Right.
The type of shows we do, we really recommend our clients have their own programs and services in those ads. So can you give us some other examples or other ways that we could use sponsorship? Because I think this is so fascinating.
Yeah, well, one of the things I love about when we think about podcasters, you're right. A lot of podcasters will look at it as almost a pure marketing spend, like an advertisement spend. Where there's opportunity to secure partners in terms of sponsorship is to look at, first of all, some of the in-kind needs that you might need, like the graphic design, like the pre-written marketing copy, somebody to support the social media. So you might be able to collaborate and get sponsorship for some of the elements of running a podcast. But there's other ways to do marketing. So like you said, when a host is doing a podcast, it's really important they promote their own services, because that's part of what your podcast is probably trying to do, is bring people back to you. And where podcast sponsorship could fit in addition to helping with some of the needs that you have, it could also be done very differently than a traditional sort of commercial, I'll call it, in the middle of a podcast. So what if you had a sponsor who worked for a particular company, and somewhere in that podcast, you would share a tip? And it's not as an infomercial. It's just, Bob from ABC Sports has a great way of looking at mental health. Here's what he said. How do you think about mental health? So you've actually woven them into your podcast as content, not as a standalone commercial. That's actually really valuable. And I've done this with sponsors before, even in my speaking presentations. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing when you're a speaker at an event. Most people don't listen intently when you say, I'd like to thank my sponsors. And then right. You run through the bulleted list. People zone out, they look at their phone. But when you are speaking and you say, let me share a story about a business that I really love. So Mary, who works for this business, has a great way of looking at customer service. So you've actually woven them into your content versus kind of given them this showcase where they kind of stand out, but it's not enough time to really stand out, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I love that because it's like an endorsement. So it's yes. Like, in the show host is endorsing the product, and it's through story, which I love, because then it's not interruption. Yeah. And it's heard. It's heard because it's a story, or because it's it's not an ad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I love that. Where do we start looking for these kind of opportunities?
That is a great question. Where do we start looking for those opportunities is with who you know, close to home, and where you do business. So what I mean by that is a great exercise for everybody listening. Just go pull out your last 6 months of Visa or credit card receipts. See where you spend your money, because this will show you where you spend money and the types of products that you use. For example, if you were interested in having a telecommunications, a cell phone company, a lot of times people will start researching every cell phone company on the face of the earth. Well, if you have a cell phone, you have a contract. Mm-hmm. You are in a relationship with the cell phone company. So for myself, I work with TELUS as my cell phone provider. I'm in a relationship with them. Do I know Mr. Telus or the owner of Telus? I do not, but I'm in a contract with them. And so when I go to Telus and talk with them about the projects that I'm working on, I'm able to say I've been a longtime client, 25 years. I've had cell phones and office phones. So there's a relationship there. You're starting from the relationship. And same thing with banks and insurance companies and gyms, places that you buy your clothes. So you always start close to home with products that you love, because you said something really important, Michelle, a moment ago. When you're talking about a product, obviously you only want to talk about products and services that you believe in, that you trust, and that you could endorse. And so that's why you start with what you love, where you shop, and where you spend money, close to home.
Wouldn't that be nice if you can reduce some of those charges on your visa too, by creating these relationships?
Yes. Well, I'll give you an example about collectively what that can look like. So when I launched my first book, On Toby's Terms, in 2010, so going into almost 12 years ago, as I was planning the launch, and you know this, Michelle, from working with so many authors, the launch costs quickly increase. The bigger the idea, the more expensive it is. So this launch plan was starting to cost a lot of money. And I thought, where do I bring collaboration into this? So I started looking at, one of my first sponsors was my hairstylist, the place I got my hair cut. Then I went to my clothing store and she sponsored all of my clothing for the year, fancy clothes, clothes, the dog park clothes that I, casual business. And then I had a healthcare provider, even my eye doctor became a sponsor. So these were all people. Most of them were not cash sponsors, by the way. They were in kind, and collectively their contributions and sponsorship came to $39,000 a year that was not coming off the Visa card or out of the bank account. Wow. So that's significant, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Can we back it up just for a second? And in case if our listeners aren't sure what in kind means, can you just share what that means?
Yeah, I love that you've asked that. So when we think of sponsorship, it is this marketing relationship. And there's generally two ways to think about it. Cash, which we all understand, where a company gives you dollars towards projects, events, your podcast, whatever it is that you're looking for sponsorship support from. Then there's in kind, as Michelle just asked. And in kind is where you might have a company providing you with in kind services or products, or a combination of those. So in kind, for example, my clothing store that I shopped at for years provided all of my clothing. So I didn't pay for that. All of my clothing was given to me. And she actually did my personal shopping too, which, because I don't actually like shopping. So that was really cool. My hairstylist supported all of my hair, all of my makeup for when I was going on media. All of my hair, meaning my styles, I should say, and then also sponsored some events. So, I mean, it just grew and grew and grew.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hope our listeners right now are getting the wheels turning in their mind, like mine are, thinking, oh, wow, there's so many things that you can really look for. And you don't have to go to a government website to find out where the grant is to apply for a grant, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And my experience with grants is that if you're not a good grant writer, for me, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time. I've reviewed hundreds and hundreds of grant proposals when I worked as a government contract negotiation specialist. And, a lot of what you put into the grant shapes whether you get the money or not. So a lot of times we spend exorbitant amounts of time writing grant proposals. And then there's generally a lot of requirements that you need to meet as well. And I love sponsorship because it allows you to co-create something with that sponsor. So there's a mutually beneficial outcome. They are sort of winners in partnering with you. You're a winner in partnering with you, and your end users. So Michelle, in a podcast, your listeners benefit from it.
Right. Yeah. And I love that, because it's not just something that, I was just thinking of, there's so many things in our business that then we teach our clients to use that could easily become sponsorships of ours. Just off the top of my head, I think that there's so many different tools and programs and online, things that we need to use, or microphones or things like that, right? There's lots of opportunity. Yeah, that's awesome. So now, just teach about this. You actually do this in your business. And in fact, your award-winning movie Back at Home, again, was completely funded by sponsorship. So share with us a little bit about the movie itself and the mission behind it, but then also how did you come up with this idea and then get it completely funded?
Sure. Well, Back Home Again is an animated movie, 30 minutes short, written by screenwriter Michael Mankowski, an exquisite writer and producer. And Michael was born and raised in Fort McMurray, Alberta. And in 2016, they had devastating wildfires, which many people around the world knew about and followed on the media. So Michael went through this evacuation. He's a screenwriter. He's a producer. So when he came back, he was brought into the community quite early in the recovery and return process by Red Cross. And he was filming all kinds of interviews and testimonials with people about their experience being evacuated for weeks and weeks, and some people months and months. In fact, there's people who haven't yet returned. And so as he's filming all these stories, he thought there is so much here that the world needs to hear. And what Michael was envisioning was a movie that would help people heal, a movie that would help people talk about mental health and community. And so that's where Back Home Again was born. I got involved in the project almost 5 years ago, so I've been working closely with Michael. And of course, anytime you do a movie or production, it needs to get funded. And we knew that we wanted to do a different model, not an investment model, because we wanted to make the movie available wherever possible, free for people to watch, so that schools could watch this, families could watch this. So sponsorship was a significant part of the way that we generated revenue for the movie. We had a couple of grants. We did some private fundraising. And so sponsorship is a really big part of it. But we also have created this community of what we call our champions, our champion partners. These are social influencers, people with big reach on social media who are lending their audience to us to help get the message out. So what is that thread? Just like I said earlier, the thread through my whole career has been relationships. The thread in this movie is also relationships and collaboration. Everything we've done is about a group of people coming together and playing different roles to get this movie off the ground.
Wow, that's awesome. And right now it is in some film festivals.
Yeah.
And so it's not yet available to the public. So when can we expect to be able to watch it?
In 2022. And the best way to find out about it is follow our socials, Back Home Again Movie, or the website is backhomeagainmovie.com. And we'll be releasing kind of where it's appearing, how people can access it. Right now, we're looking at scheduling a whole bunch of in-person, hopefully, events where people can come and watch the movie and have a conversation after, where we have a panel conversation. We're working with organizations to help us get, and again, this is where collaboration comes in. So working with organizations to help us get the movie into schools, nonprofit organizations, even workplaces who want to use this as kind of a lunch and learn to start conversations with their employees about mental health. And so there's been so many creative ways that this movie has been brought to life.
I love that. So just going back for a second to when you're looking for sponsorship and you're looking, you were mentioning that sometimes it's within the marketing budget. So is it the person we're looking to connect with in the marketing department then, or is it in a different space?
Brilliant question. And that's often the trick, is finding the right person. So if I could say there's one piece of the puzzle, we have a 7-step model that we use at Raise a Dream, and you can go on and get an ebook on raiseadream.com, and it actually goes right through the 7-step model. So when you identify those companies that you would love to have a collaboration with or love to bring on board as a partner sponsor, then we've got to figure out, well, who do we actually talk to? Now, Michelle, you were exactly right in saying one of the groups that you're likely going to connect with is going to be marketing, because the funds are probably coming out of marketing. However, the bigger the organization or company, the more layers there are and the more departments there are. So for example, big national brands generally have people that work in either community affairs or corporate social responsibility, CSR is another title. Sometimes it will be called the sponsorship department. So I've got two sponsors we're working with right now, and on their website, they call it sponsorship. On another sponsor's website, they call it corporate social responsibility. On another partner, they call it how we work with the community. So, so here, what I do know is that when I can't find the right person, marketing, brand development, and community affairs or public relations is another way. If you connect with the wrong person, I have found that people are very, very helpful by saying, we're not the right department. I'm going to put you in touch with so-and-so. But finding the right person can be part of the challenge. I use LinkedIn, honestly, to find the people. A lot of times they don't have that information on company websites. So LinkedIn, I get in there and I search the company name, and then I use those words, sponsorship or CSR or public affairs or community affairs. And sometimes you can't even find them that way. But most times you'll find some. The other thing you can do is I have found the sponsor contacts by actually Googling company press releases. And on the press release, it'll say, contact media relations. And I know that's not the sponsorship person, but I can phone that person and then they'll say, oh, it's not me, but here's who you talk to.
That's
Call
awesome.
Yeah.
So a little detective work online is going to go a long way. And I would imagine that LinkedIn's probably a pretty good place to look.
It really is. It really is. Because sometimes what happens, I see this a lot. I just saw this recently on social media, for example. People will go on and almost do a pitch for sponsorship on a company's Facebook page, or not a good thing, because there's no relationship. You're just simply asking for money. We've got this great project. You'd be a great sponsor. And I mean, if you think about it, one of the sponsors we're dealing with right now, she said she alone gets about 23 to 25 calls a day from different individuals, groups, entrepreneurs asking her for money. And she is one of 12 people in her department. So if you do the math, that's a lot of pitching.
And that's
a lot
of calls. Yeah.
A lot of calls. How do you stand out? Part of how you stand out is by showing your interest in learning about the company. So you build relationship first and let the relationship start to help you figure out how you could work together with the company.
That's great. I love that. Leading with relationships. It's kind of funny because it kind of goes very much in hand with how you get on a podcast. You don't send a podcast host a million pitches because we all get lots in our inboxes, but building a relationship with them goes a long way.
Exactly.
Back to that relationship word again. It's fantastic. I think it's our new currency in the future. It's certainly becoming one of the biggest currencies in podcasting for sure. And I just love it. I love that relationship's a huge part of business now.
Yeah, it really is. It's the glue to it all. And I always believe that when you take time to nurture the relationship and build the relationship, you can better co-create how it is that you're partnering with groups and companies and businesses and brands. So the more effort you put into the relationship, generally, the bigger the way that you're working with that partner will be.
Right. Love it. I love it. No, Charmaine, you also help other entrepreneurs get funding or learn how to get funding in their businesses. Is that correct? We
do. With Raise a Dream, we work with entrepreneurs. So a lot of them are speakers, authors, coaches, podcast hosts, as well as some nonprofits and charities. And we teach them about the sponsorship model. A lot of times people like what I've learned, entrepreneurs as well as nonprofits, they like to feel good about, I just sent out 50 pitches today. Woohoo. And generally 50 pitches results in this many responses. So I think, wow, that's a lot of work for zero return. So we really teach people that you're better to actually build the relationship with 10 people. And a couple of them might come through as partners or collaboration, or they might introduce you to a company and save you 9 months of research and sponsorship kind of development with them, versus sending out a whole bunch of pitch docs that sponsors, it's yet another one in their inbox that they have to read. They don't know you. You're asking for money. So we work with them to understand how to collaborate effectively, how to be relationship driven, because what holds entrepreneurs back from asking for money, because generally what an entrepreneur is asking for support for is them indirectly. our podcast, our book launch, our speaking tour. It has to do with us, unlike a nonprofit organization where they're asking on the behalf of the entity to support clients. So sometimes we get so attached to, we feel uncomfortable. We don't want to ask for ourselves, and we get awkward on the call, and then people don't know what to ask on the call. So that's what we do. We teach people the process, how to research sponsors, how to be prepared for the call, how to work in a way that sponsors expect us to work, and then how to have a great discovery call, how to start co-creating opportunities together, if they ask for a proposal, what do you put in it? And then how do you kind of move the proposal to a yes in a contract?
Awesome. I love that so much. And if I can share with our audience too, we have a podcast that just launched recently that is fully sponsored. The host is it's fully sponsored by a company called Accessibility. So Michael Hingston is a New York Times bestselling author, where his guide dog helped him down 70 flights of stairs during 9/11. And so his book is called Thunder Dog. And so the company that he's partnership with is about helping organizations become more accessible online using this technology. So they've sponsored this podcast that he's the host. It's under their name. So this is just another idea I hope that I can leave with some of you, that if you want to be a podcast host and maybe you want to have some freedom for your own content, but you feel like very aligned with a certain organization, maybe a great place to reach out on behalf of them and look for that sponsorship.
Love that. And congratulations to I got goosebumps when you mentioned the story, and wow. And congratulations on having a sponsor for that, for that podcast. Way to go to your client. And it sounds like a really incredible book.
Yeah, really fascinating. And I'm so excited for him that he made that collaboration and that connection. So guys, if you need some support in this, reach out to Charmaine. Charmaine, where can we go to raiseadream.com?
Yeah.
And find out more information. And it sounds like your 7-step process in your download there is a good thing to get if this has piqued your interest. Yes. I think I would suggest it. And I just love that you've created this movie, Back Home Again. And I'm looking forward to watching it when we can, because I think it has it's going to make a huge impact on the world. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. And it must feel amazing to have an idea, see it through fruition, and see the impact it's going to make in the world.
It sure does. We were just showing it to one of our sponsors and all their employees last night. And it's just such an incredible opportunity to watch people watch it. And I mean, I've seen this, I don't know how many hundreds of times, and I'm still moved by it. And then to watch people that have become a part of it through collaboration and sponsorship, then watch it and know that they helped create it. That is like, gets the goosebumps going.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that so much. There's people out there that have the finances to help support your idea, your brilliant idea. And I think this is such a great way of just turning on that light bulb in your head and like, hey, this idea, if I can't personally fund it, there's someone else out there that I can collaborate with or be in partnership with to make it a reality. So don't let the funding stop you from your dreams. Right?
Yes, that should be on a meme. That's really good, Michelle. Don't let
How come that's not your company tagline?
That's really good.
Right? I love that.
Awesome.
Charmaine, any last words for our audience out there today?
I just want to say, do one little thing. Like a lot of times entrepreneurs, we go into this whole, I'm going to do all my sponsorship this Saturday. And then they go gung ho and then do nothing for 2 months. So one little action, just 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, all year long. You could be so much further into sponsorship than if you were to kind of bulk these, go crazy on one weekend doing a lot, and then not touching it for several months, because relationships are an ongoing process. And if you stop them, you stop the process of sponsorship.
Right. Oh my goodness. That's such a good words of advice for everything we do in our business, guys, not just sponsorships, but a little bit of action, imperfect action every day adds up to a huge movement over the course of the years. So,
and Sam Dema, who we both know from CAPS, I love how he says it. He says small, consistent, actions. And I mean, Sam Dema just nails it with that, because that's what sponsorship is all about. These little baby steps that we take every single day that put the puzzle together.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you, Charmaine, for being with us today. Thank you, Amplify You family, for joining us for this episode. I hope you got tons of value in it. I know my light bulbs are going off like crazy. My wheels are turning. The dust is coming off. And I'm like, okay, I got some ideas now. So thanks for being with us today, Charmaine. Amplify You family. Go out there. Have a fabulous day. Be great. Your uniqueness is your genius. Amplifying it to the world is ours. Be out there. Be amazing. We'll see you next week.